I'm Winston Moss, XFL Wildcats. This is an XFL show.
XFL is cooking.
Welcome, football fans. This is For the Love of Football, and this is the XFL show. I'm Alan.
And I'm Bryant.
We're back on the road to another XFL kickoff. Destination this time unknown. All we know is that we're headed in the general direction of what we anticipate being another epic XFL kickoff. This is episode 131. It is the new road, and it is the second show back. Bryant, how you feeling after our Ask Me Anything on XFL Reddit?
That was a lot of fun. I'm feeling okay. I'm starting to get my legs back, I guess you could say. Getting back into the groove of things, but we're back. Second episode.
Your podcasting legs. Your XFL podcasting legs, yeah. And it's just you and I. Vince, the Vin man, is absent today. I don't know if it's because we had a very heated debate scheduled, and he had to. He said, let's reschedule it, because I think he has to plan a little bit for you, Brian, because you two are going at it on our private Discord chat we all share. I mean, that's going to be good stuff when you and Vince finally go at it talking relocation, but that's not happening on today's show. So do you have any fighting words for him if he's listening?
No fighting words, but I think, Alan, you might just have to let us kind of handle that one, and you're just going to have to stand by and kind of referee the whole thing. Well, him and I don't differ on much, but when we do, we differ for a while, and this might get interesting.
Yeah, I don't know how unbiased I could be, though, because I kind of side with you on the whole relocation topic, but that's for another show. On today's show, we're going to get into the latest news, the first week's news cycle since the XFL was purchased, and officially the sale went through. It's official. Redbird Capital, The Rock, Danny Garcia, new owners of the XFL, as we discussed on our first show back last week. 724-565-4XFL. Call that XFL fan line. We did get some of you calling in, not wanting to be on the air, but asking good questions. We're going to be covering a lot of what you were asking on today's show, so make sure you call that fan line each and every week. Open 24/7, 365, 724-565-4XFL. Of course, we're at XFL Show on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Hit us up on social media. And proud sponsor back on the show, Bryant. Pretty Easy Podcast, putting this whole thing together. PrettyEasyPodcast.com, where you go to get your podcast started. So if you're a budding podcaster out there, you're sitting at home in quarantine, and you want to podcast yourself and have someone who knows what they're doing production-wise help you out at a very affordable price, go to PrettyEasyPodcasts.com. And now we can dink and dunk around a little bit, Bryant, ease our way back into this second episode back. I do want to say thank you to everybody at XFL Reddit, RXFL, everybody who runs it, the moderators, and all the members of the sub who joined our Ask Me Anything. Brian alluded to. A lot of fun. I don't know if it was appropriate for me to divulge our Pepper Johnson story, Bryant, but I did it anyway.
Most of what you said about Pepper Johnson was true. I think it's fine. It was I think we even mentioned it on the actual show. Pepper Johnson. I'm sorry I didn't have a bigger car for you, though. That was I think, because I mean he's a former football player. I mean, this is a rather large individual, but
we had it was an SUV we rode the man in. I mean, how much bigger of a car does he need?
I mean, it was like the mini S. It was like a CRV. It wasn't like a like a big one. I mean, I know you drive. What do you drive? Like a Honda Civic or something like that?
Honda. Yeah, I got the Honda Rousey, so it's a little. Yeah, CRV is basically like an excursion to me. But yes, the Ask Me Anything, we told some fun stories about our drive with Pepper Johnson, our experiences as XFL employees, as the official XFL podcast. And we appreciate all the questions we got. And a lot of the questions that were asked, Bryant, basically could make for entire shows now that we're back in your territory of no football actually being played and a lot of speculation.
Speculation, it's what I live for. I thought it was a great AMA. I really appreciated being asked to do that. I'm kind of shocked, honestly, myself, Alan, that I didn't have more typos than I do because, I'm very typo oriented. I went back and actually read. I think only found like 2 or 3 typos. So,
I think also
he answered pretty much every single question that was asked as well.
Yeah, I think also the fact that we took our good time to answer every question. I think you did a good job with your typos. I was proud of you. Good job with the typos, Bryant. Look at that compliment for you in our AMA. And they asked us in the AMA, is the show coming back for good? What's going on? And we said it there. We're planning on weekly episodes, so here we are.
You want it? Down. I'm going to give it to you right now.
And so here it is. And, going around XFL social media is what we do at the start of these shows. And we saw a lot of action, of course, with the sale of the league, but former players and personnel were the most interesting to me, Bryant. And one I saw that stood out was the Wildcats quarterback, Josh Johnson, at Headache8 on Twitter, said, glad to see the XFL back. The Rock, Danny Garcia and company, congratulations. I loved LA, but I'm from the town. That means Oakland, right? The town. That means the Bay Area.
Yes.
There is a big...
Didn't he say A-Town?
No, he said the town. A-Town would be Atlanta. The town. So he said there's a big stadium that don't have a team and very loyal fan base to the game of football if y'all looking for a new city. Basically saying, yo, can Oakland get a team, Rock? Josh, what's up? That's your LA Wildcats QB advocating for an Oakland team. Does that upset you in any way, Bryant? I mean, as a Wildcats fan, I understand it because it's a new world we're in. But if this was said in February, I would be very irate.
Yeah, I think the timing is everything. Relocation seems to be a big thing. I guess we'll talk about that at some other point because we got some other news to talk about. But to see a quarterback, basically pitch his city, I think that's fair. I think Josh Johnson, knowing what the XFL can do and the effects that it can have on a city is a pretty positive thing. So I think that's a good sign. If a former player is pitching for the XFL to come back to his city, I think that's a good thing.
Well, I saw a lot of stuff like that this week that made me feel good inside because seeing ex-players wanting the league back and also, coming up with new ideas, seeing ex-presidents of teams coming out. I mean, Kurt Hunziker of the Battlehawks in St. Louis was all over the place, did radio interviews, did a lot of posts on social media that caught people's attention. He even proposed a bubble tournament to be held in St. Louis. I mean, seeing that stuff makes me excited and believe that this thing actually can get back up off the ground, and definitely believe that the people who were involved can be involved again, and we could just pick up where we left off, hopefully. But what might have upset you, Bryant, was the fact that Kurt Hunziker kind of used one of your social media tactics as a sultan of social media, someone who prides themselves.
That was
your tweet, he kind of stole your tactic. And that might have, with the eyeball thing that he put out, which I have no clue what that means.
I don't really know what it means either. I think it just means open your eyes. I think look out for what might be ahead. I don't know.
Be on the lookout. Just posting the eyeball emojis. Battlehawks president Kurt Hunziker. When someone in his position puts the eyeballs out, that means something big's coming. Just like when someone in your position last week did it, Brian. A big new show came out. That's eyeballs mean big things on social media.
It really does, especially if that's the only thing you put out there. Maybe with a couple of dots at the end of it, a little period, 3 periods at the end. You should always be aware. I already looked at his social media. Still no update since that tweet. So we'll see what ends up happening. Alan, I mean, we can all admit, though, I think for the time being, big news in terms of anything that has to do with like the season or anything like that, it's going to take some time. So whatever Kurt Hunziker has to tell us, I think it has nothing to do with actually playing football.
Ooh, or does it? We'll see. Who the hell knows? It's 2020. Not putting anything past anybody. Every week feels like a big news week, and no matter what you're following, sports, politics, anything, this thing's nuts this year. This is one for the record book. So Kurt Hunziker dropping some news, hopefully with that eyeballs tweet. At least he should know that's what that means. Kurt, if you're not going to be putting out some interesting news and haven't put out eyeballs, I will say I will be disappointed. I'll still love you, but I will be disappointed. Eyeballs are supposed to mean big news.
Well, was it early in the morning? Maybe he was just saying, "Hey guys, I'm awake. What's going on?"
That's not what that means.
Maybe it could happen though. You just never know.
Well, we all need to agree that what these emojis are supposed to mean. That's what they mean to me. Like the Spring League, they could have put out some big eyeball emojis because they had some pretty damn big news this week that I think we need to be discussing as we begin this week's Cover 2.
Go ahead, get out of here.
All right. Remember the Spring League, Bryant? The former partner.
I remember these drops. I totally forgot about some of these. Are so fun.
I don't want to talk anymore. It's wrong. I'm wondering what the hell you're doing in this league.
There's your June. There
and like watch alongs or something like that. It's so good.
And there is your June Jones moment of the week. Okay, back to the Spring League, Bryant. Remember them?
Yes.
The Spring League was a partner of the XFL. They basically were the trial ground, the practice ground for the new XFL rules last year. And the Spring League has been around. They do these. They're really like camps that are officiated and have a lot of very good players at them and scouts and they have real action, real games that they put on. I feel like they are growing and growing. Last year's XFL partnership was great for the Spring League, and now they've announced that they're having a 6-team tournament, bubble style, in Las Vegas. Bubble style, meaning like how the NBA and NHL are doing their leagues right now. That means enclosed, keeping everybody on check, on lockdown, basically. But the interesting thing about it is it's in October. In 2 months, Bryant, the Spring League, October, not in the spring, contrary to popular belief, but the Spring League going ahead and having a tournament in October anyway. And I think that is big news because with the fluidity, with how college football is changing, what their plans are, moving to the spring with the Big Ten and the Pac-12 and potentially other Power 5 conferences. I don't know, Brian. I know the ACC people were meeting like as we were hitting record on this show today, so something might happen with that league even today. But if more college football conferences move to the Spring League having this bubble style tournament is, I think, big for players and fans. I mean, you got NFL scouts want to see tape of players in the fall, right? They want to see the NFL is going to make some accommodations for players, I think, with their draft next year. They're going to have to. But the Spring League doing this, I think, helps the NFL out a lot and potentially the XFL out a lot because it might be able to lay a blueprint here, just kind of like it did last year with, being a walkthrough of all the rules. Again, the Spring League, I think, helping the XFL out here.
In a sense, they are. I guess you'd want the concept tested, although I think, the bubble concept has shown that it shows, that it actually works, or at least has more promise than just allowing your teams to kind of freely be out there and do whatever it is that they want and then be ready for game time. You can see what's going on with the Cardinals and what happened with the Miami Marlins in baseball. If the Spring League does this, and it seems like they're moving forward with it, and there is no college football or half of college football is out, I think this is a good thing for the Spring League for sure. But in terms of for the XFL, I think in concept idea, I think it'll be great, but I don't know how quickly the XFL can get this type of. I mean, the Spring League you're talking about, I don't know how long they've been around, way longer than what the XFL has been around, and they're able to do this type of thing. I don't know how long or how quickly the XFL has to make something like this happen.
So the bubble setup for the Spring League would include, according to CEO Brian Woods, 20 to 30 college players from Power 5 schools that are either opted out already or had their seasons postponed. And then you've got a total of 38 players per team, all in the same hotel in Vegas, practicing, playing, doing it all at the same facility, just like the NBA and NHL are doing. And Brian Woods is saying that at least 280 players, coaches, and other staff members will be quarantined in this bubble that they plan on putting together. And it's totally self-funded, it sounds like, or he said internally, whatever that means. But they plan on hopefully getting money back for this whole setup. This is an investment. Now, I think this is if this is like some sort of risk they're taking and putting all this money out there to put this thing together, I say go for it, because what network wouldn't want to get a piece of that? Just air a cool 16 football tournament, especially with we already have no Big Ten or Pac-12 games to air, Fox. I mean, come on. This is made for TV if they could pull it off.
And would people be interested in something like this? I think so. I think rightfully so. They'd be very interested in something like this. It basically lays the groundwork for what the XFL can do. People love football, and I think that's especially with no football in the fall, or limited football in the fall. It opens up how much football can actually happen in the spring. You know, a lot of people are expecting, the Pac-12 and the Big Ten to play football in the spring. Because of their cancellations. Who knows if that's actually going to happen, if that's even feasible. There's so many question marks for college football now, especially with two of the conferences bowing out. What opportunities are going to be there for the XFL? If they have to do a bubble concept, I think this will prove whether or not it can happen. And I think the Spring League's willing to take that chance to get their name out there.
Yeah, and with college football potentially moving to the spring, if they do pull it off, the XFL, that's competition as well for the XFL, so they're going to have to figure out how to work around them and also take from what the Spring League does here with this bubble concept. So we could be getting, actually, when it's all said and done, from September through, May, Bryant, a lot more football than usual. We'll see what happens. But I like also going back to the XFL and a potential bubble concept. Jeff Darlington of ESPN, formerly of the NFL Network, said a great tweet. I love this one. He said, "If I'm The Rock, I'm not The Rock. I'm watching very closely to see what happens with the NCAA. A canceled season creates the biggest vacuum for an NFL farm league we've ever seen. You could get 6 to 8 teams in an XFL bubble, recruit juniors and seniors, and give them unprecedented access to NFL scouts." Dana White of the UFC even basically publicly encourage The Rock to play as soon as possible because of how badly networks want live TV content. So with the changes to college football, how badly networks want TV content, the question of an XFL bubble sooner rather than later is one a lot of people are asking, is one I'm sure behind closed doors they're going to inquire about, pursue, see if it's feasible. Later on in the show, we're going to check in on this and give our take on whether or not we believe that can actually happen. But everybody's throwing it out there. An XFL bubble, either in the fall or in the spring, and they're pushing for it. And fans want football. The hashtag "we want to play" was everywhere, and I don't think it's, at the end of the day, my prediction is that's not going to really matter, because what's going to happen is the NCAA conferences are going to figure they want to play, but we just can't do it, especially since we don't pay these kids. So I think we are looking at a whole new world and a lot of potential and possibilities. Which opportunity to take for the XFL, and figuring out, that making that choice is really important, I think, for The Rock, for Danny Garcia and the people at Redbird Capital. That's going to be the big thing here. There are going to be a lot of opportunities, Bryant. Which one do you take? We will wait and see, and I really don't even know which one to push for just yet, but we do know for sure there are going to be different options I think they could pursue. Just waiting it all out and doing it like Vince McMahon and Oliver Luck did, that also might be the best option as well.
We'll go over what all the different options I guess there will be and which one you'd rather choose. But to kind of go back to, what people are saying, these Jeff Darlington, Dana White, I understand the want for all these people to say XFL needs to do this, The Rock should do that. The fall is the biggest opportunity they're going to have to do this and blah, blah, blah. But I think at the end of the day, you look at, Major League Baseball, NHL, NFL, NBA, even with the pandemic, these once things kind of started getting some clarity as to what COVID was, it still took them 2-3 months to actually even kind of think about what they could do to play football, to play their respective sports. To give the XFL 2 to 3 months when they have nothing, I think is just insane talk.
Yes.
I know a lot of people want it to happen,
Could
but to expect that to happen from one league is just astronomical to me.
Well, I mean, look at the NFL really doesn't have a clue what they're exactly doing just yet. And also, you've got the NCAA. All they could come up with was, we got a format for how our teams are going to play and a new schedule for our conferences. But then they started losing opponents when they were thinking about non-conference games as well. So this is a very hard thing to do. And pushing for it and saying this makes sense is one thing, but is it actually a reality? We'll get into it. Let's go to part 2 of our cover 2. Michael McCarthy from Front Office Sports reports that the Fox network is interested, Bryant, in airing the XFL again. And according to a source he spoke to named Patrick Crakes, who is an ex-Fox Sports executive, said, is Fox interested? Sure, they're always interested in football, but it won't be the same kind of deal Vince McMahon got. So, insiders saying Fox is interested. There was even one that came out after the bankruptcy, I think in the Athletic article that I read after the sale was approved, that Fox was already working on retooling their deal, alluding to the fact that the original XFL TV deal was already up. So remember, we didn't even know those details, Bryant, about the original ESPN and Fox deals. So according to how this whole sale went down and how bankruptcy court treated the network deals, at least, it may have only been a 1-year deal with Fox and or ESPN. So retooling a new deal is what Fox is apparently doing, but there's no comment from a current Fox staffer or executive, so we don't know the exact details. This is all just based on sources reported by Front Office Sports, but it does make sense. Why wouldn't Fox want the XFL back? The ratings were solid enough, and especially when you're talking about live sports now compared to February, Bryant, I'm sure they're desperate for live events.
Well, I mean, here's my thing in terms of length. We didn't know the details, you're right, Alan, but for Fox and ESPN to put up a fight to not be a part of the transfer of ownership, I would say that these deals were longer than a year, right? I mean, there was something in there that said, hey, this is going to be, for 2021 and 2022, perhaps. That's why we don't want this. We want to know what's going on before we actually commit to this, because they don't want to get bit again. I mean, you're not to the XFL's fault, but Fox and ESPN had to replace 5 weeks of television, not just because of the XFL, but because of all sports. And they don't want to have this happen to them again. So there's got to be something in there. I don't even think it's necessarily because of Vince McMahon not being a part of this. I think it's just because they don't want to get bit in the keister once again if something like this happens. So, yeah, I think any network would be very willing and accepting to some sort of football, especially with the success that we saw with the XFL. And we did see success regardless of whether ratings were going down or not. They were still pretty high for sports in those timeframes. So I think any network would be stupid to pass up at least a discussion on new XFL football. Yeah,
this article on Front Office Sports also referenced DAZN as a potential partner. I don't know if you know what DAZN is. I'm actually a subscriber because I love boxing. It's boxing, Max. I love boxing. But DAZN is really only known for boxing, and they're kind of hemorrhaging money from what I've read, and that's a subscription service. They tried to get in the MLB game a little bit, I think, with highlights and stuff, and they're bigger in Europe. Would that make sense, an over-the-top network for the XFL, a subscription-based network airing their games?
You're still talking about a network that pretty, still has a very, a dedicated following when it comes to the sport that they cover. I don't know if you want to be the guinea pig and how great the ratings are, unless you get some astronomical amount of dollars to actually be on their network. I think you probably stay away from those types of deals when it comes to streaming services. You want to be on cable television or on regular, broadcast television.
Yeah, that deal's got to be absolutely cherry if you want to get in bed with DAZN, because really you're basically asking people to pay to watch the XFL from home. Don't know if they want to do that. We all want the XFL back, and I don't know how many people I could share my login username and password with, Brian. I think they probably cap it at like 2 or 3, so we might be in trouble then,
We don't share passwords. What are you talking about?
Never. No one does that on planet Earth with any subscription service whatsoever. Wait, what was the Athletic login again? Wait, don't air that. Delete that. Pretty easy podcast, people. Delete that. All right. Are you ready? That's our cover two. You ready to get into some to check in to get a temperature check on what we've seen in the news cycle this week and talk about possible kickoff dates?
Definitely.
All right, let's rock it in this week's hot read. So here we go. Things are going to get a little spicier here because we're going to be, I think, opinionated, and I have no clue where you're coming from here, Bryant, and I have my thoughts on it. Checking in, taking a temperature of where you believe it's possible for kickoff to occur as of right now. When is it actually possible the XFL could put this thing together and kick off? What date do you have in mind after seeing the news come out of the sale being official, hearing some rumor and innuendo, seeing reports about the interest from networks, seeing what the spring league's doing, seeing what NCAA's doing? Where you think we're looking at? Where's this road headed to?
So, Alan, with COVID, 19 and everything, and being able to enjoy more time at home, the family and I have really enjoyed watching The Price is Right. I don't know if you ever watched that when you were a kid, but I used to watch all the time. And now I watch it every day. It's a great show. I'm more a fan of Bob Barker than I am Drew Carey, but either one is pretty good. The reason I bring them up is because I want to go, where can I go to where I don't go over, right? Because I'm saying, what's the earliest I can go for the XFL without actually going over? I would say, I guess maybe even under, I would say April of 2021 would be the earliest I would give the XFL an opportunity to actually play football.
April 2021. So according to math, you're saying, what's that, 8 months?
Calendar. According to calendar
Math. 8 months, and you think they could pull it off?
That's the earliest I think they could go. I don't know if they could, like if you were to tell me what's the middle point of when they can go or they couldn't go, I would say April. And if they can't launch by April 2021, they're going in 2022. Like, they're not going to go past April for a kickoff.
So if they're playing in April, then you realize that they would also be playing side by side with the big, in a perfect world and how everyone's hoping things go on, shape up. They'd be playing side by side with the Big Ten, the Pac-12, potentially the rest of college football. You think that would be something
in April 2021?
I mean, they're hoping that they play spring football. They're hoping that they're playing in the spring with these conferences that postponed. I think they'll be playing into April, don't you?
Football playing, no. My thoughts on college football
playing
the tail end in the spring are almost like not even existent. Like, I think it's comical if you think.
Oh, you don't think it's happening?
Oh, no, I don't think it's happening whatsoever. Like, anybody who's delaying football until the spring is not happening. And if they play football during the fall, it's going to end poorly. So regardless, that's not the discussion we're having. I'm saying if, like, for the XFL to have enough time to do this, I think April 2021 would be the only. I mean, could they pull it off for February 2021? Let's say, college says they're not going to play. We're going to do our own thing. Because Sundays still become available even if spring football for colleges does exist, right? I would think spring football would play on Saturdays, so you still have Sundays. I think the XFL has an opportunity there. But
what about
I still
bubble?
don't think it's going to happen in 2021, but that's as early as I'd put it.
What about bubble? Is that a bubble situation then, April 2021?
I think it is, and I still think it's a fanless bubble. I don't think the XFL can afford the liability of having fans, especially as a startup league, to have that type of either insurance or precautions or to spend the money to have fans in the stadiums. I don't think would be a possibility, financially speaking.
Okay. I think that you've given yourself a good enough amount of runway. I think that makes sense. I think I would say that's not even possible. April. From what I've been reading so far, what we're hearing in terms of the official sale of the league and all the sources and what they spoke about, a 2021 kickoff, I'm hoping we're back being the official XFL podcast by then, Bryant. I hope that could all happen. But in terms of kicking off and playing the game and having everything back with the infrastructure, players, coaches, staff on teams, and let alone the league, I just think that would be rushed, and I would not feel very confident in that foundation unless it was basically plug and play and you have a high percentage of what you had when the league had to fold. So I'm talking about like over 85% of the people who work there are hired back. And I don't even know if that many of those people are available. A lot of people got new jobs, Bryant. Great for them. And some people might not want to go back. We'll have to see that as well. Danny Garcia came out and said that there was a lot of great people. She even mentioned, we talked about it last week as well, a lot of great people working in the XFL they're hoping to reach out to and bring back. But, man, especially if, I think that is a factor, if college football does pull it off with some spring football. I don't want the XFL getting lost in the shuffle there. I think your bargaining power is greater if your situation happens, though, Bryant, and those leagues just fail miserably at putting any plans together. The networks are coming up with plans.
By the way,
they have been failing miserably. They are, if they continue to. And I just think, unless you have, like I said, a cherry deal from one of these networks, why rush it? People do want football. People probably would even tolerate bubble football. But, man, that runway was so good from 2018 to 2020. And we talked about how that was the most important thing and why we felt the XFL was succeeding. And even after this week
how much of that runway, Alan, not to cut you off because I know you're going with this, but how much of that runway is not necessary?
Yeah.
Right? They had 2 years, right? From when Vince McMahon announced to when kickoff, it was 2 years. How much of that is not necessary? Is it 50%, 40%, 70%?
Yeah, we don't know.
How much of that runway is gone?
We don't know right now. But if you're saying cut that runway to just 8 months, I would hope for, after this week, I'm hoping for at least a year. But then you're not going to be kicking off in the summer, or maybe you will be. We'll see. But right now, I'm going to put my target date in terms of where this league will have its infrastructure back and maybe some coaches in place again. I feel like that part of it won't even occur until August of 2021. I'm going to go 4 months further from you, Bryant, because
they're going to play in the fall of 2021.
I don't think they're going to play I'm not going to say they're going to play in the fall of 2021, but maybe have camp in 2021 in the fall and kick off shortly after the NFL season ends, just like they did this year. That's what I'm.
So you're talking about 2022.
So a kickoff of 2022, but I'm talking about this league is revving up and in place and knowing what's coming in terms of TV and the teams and the coaches and all that. I don't think we see that for at least a year. That's where I'm at right now. And really, that's not going off any inside information, obviously. We're just solely going by basically what we've talked about today and all the news that has come out in the last week with the official sale of the league being approved and knowing who's in charge now and some of what they plan to do, but not really. Make sense?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, the little information that we have, because it's really only been, 11 days since the sale of the league, and really less than a week since it's been made official. So, and really it's not even turned over. The keys haven't been handed over. They're still in escrow, you can say, if you're trying to buy a house until towards the end of the month. If I were to put it in terms of betting odds, Alan, I would say that February 2022 is the favorite. Is the odds-on favorite, maybe like at a minus 150, 120, or in that range, right? And then I would put spring 2021 as like a plus 500 in terms of starting, is where I would put it.
And, all right, and if they tell us next week in October of 2020 we've got an 8-team bubble and we're putting it together and it's happening on Fox, I'm all in. I'm all in on it, and I'm going to support it. I'm going to be hoping for the best, but that will obviously be some sort of big risk. But is it possible? I don't know how else to phrase it, but can you half-ass it? And by that I mean, can you put in a quick fall bubble season to make up for the lack of college football, but really kind of with a skeleton crew and not really the total infrastructure you plan on for maybe an official launch in 2022. Is that possible? Maybe like a sneak preview season, even 4-6 teams? Is that something that could actually happen?
No, look, if they're doing any type of fall bubble type thing, I want them to finish the season. I want 5 weeks schedule, standings are the same, finish the season, and let's go into the playoffs. That's what I want. If we're doing that.
If you get Winston Moss and Josh Johnson back on the Wildcats, I'm all for that, because I felt like they had something cooking, man. That was going to be the turnaround of the season. But can't dwell on it. I'm not going to dwell on it until I'm allowed to dwell on it again.
I will say this, Alan, and Kurt Hunziker mentioned about St. Louis being a bubble city. Maybe you can help me answer this, but if there's no fans, why do people care so much about a bubble city? Like, hockey fans, we're so entwined about what's going to be the bubble city. Is it going to be Vancouver? Is it going to be Edmonton? Does it really matter? Like, you can't really go. I guess maybe financially, the league's going to be spending some money in your city, so that's a good thing. But
I mean, the UFC literally the UFC made their bubble in a place that most UFC fans probably didn't even know existed. So, I mean, who cares? You're right.
At the end of the day, do you just want the sport to play? Yeah. Does it really matter where the bubble actually is if you can't go to the games? Like, if you could go, like if they said, hey, we're going to give 10,000 fans hotel rooms and you could be a part of this bubble, then I'd see it. But hey, if they asked you to be a part of the bubble, would you do it?
Hell yeah, I'd be a part of the bubble. Yeah. I am all about bubble life. I've been living bubble life since day one, way before COVID. I've been living bubble life. I don't know how you got me to St. Louis and Houston and to run around during all those summer showcases. I did it, but way out of my comfort zone. This is a bubble-made show. We're bubble ready.
We are bubble ready, but either way, you can find our show every single week now. I think what we're releasing Friday mornings is the new goal, Alan.
Yep, that looks like what it will be for the foreseeable future. The new schedule will be Fridays rolling out. We're going to be sitting on, hopefully, a lot of news. That's what we're hoping, so that we can get it out and you can listen to it on Fridays and through the weekend. And that's going to be our plan moving forward until things change. And that could damn well happen next week. We do not know. We might switch it up. It's just be on your toes. Follow us at XFL Show and just keep your eyes peeled. Keep those Kurt Hunziker emoji eyeballs up and ready, because there's going to be a lot of those eyeball emojis, I think, coming over the course of the next few weeks and months, especially as we see what's going on with the other football leagues. And this spring league bubble tournament, also something to keep an eye on. I am super hyped if this thing gets pulled off. That could be big.
More football, more fun is what I'll say. Alan, here, I found my read, if I could read it from what I used to do. Follow us on all social media platforms at XFL Show. Subscribe and listen to us, and every single Friday morning now on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your preferred podcast app. You can also catch us on thisisthexflshow.com or youtube.com/thisisthexfl show, the official YouTube page of This Is the XFL Show.
Yeah, buddy. Putting these up on YouTube, putting them out everywhere again. We're back in it. Bryant's got his reads ready. He's prepared again. We plugged and played, and we're back in it. It feels like we were never gone. Hopefully, the entire league is able to do that in some form or fashion, but we shall see. Don't forget to call that XFL fan line as well, 724-565-4XFL. We do want to hear from you. Thanks to everybody at PrettyEasyPodcast.com. Go get your podcast started today by going to PrettyEasyPodcasts.com yourself. And thanks for listening, everybody. You got anything else, Bryant?
No, just if you didn't catch our AMA, go back to the Reddit, r/XFL, and check out our answers to some of the cool questions. And also always reach out to us on social media. We'll answer your questions anytime.
And stay tuned for next week when Vince is back to have a rager of a debate with Bryant, and I might jump in as well, on possible relocation and team names and brands. Oh, people love them. Jerseys and whatnot. We'll be talking some of that next week. So keep it locked, and we'll see you then. Thanks for listening, everybody. For Bryant, I'm Alan. This is the XFL show. Remember, they're listening.